Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first meeting of the interim for the Joint Committee on Economic Development and Workforce Investment. Appreciate everybody being here this morning. Also want to recognize one of our newest members to the committee, Representative Peyton Griffey, who's here with us this morning. Representative, thank you. Looking forward to you being on this committee through the interim and then hopefully also during the 2025 session. Co-Chair Branscombe, any comments from you this morning?
No, Chairman, just appreciate everybody being here today and look forward to a good interim.
Sounds great. Also want to wish a happy belated birthday to Senator Gary Boswell, who celebrated his birthday yesterday. We will not do any singing, Gary, but we appreciate you this morning. Thank you. Starting out this morning on the agenda is the importance of utilities and economic development. Oh, sorry, roll call. My bad. Already jumped ahead. Sasha, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Here. Senator Funky Fromeyer. Senator Gardler, Senator Harper Angel, Senator Howell, Senator Mills, here. Senator Storm, Senator Thomas, Senator Wheeler, Senator Wilson, Representative Baker, here. Representative Bauman,
Present.
Representative Bratcher, here. Representative Callaway,
here.
Representative Camuel,
here.
Representative Duval,
here.
Representative Elliott,
I'm here.
Representative Gentry, Representative Griffey,
Here.
Representative Huff,
Here.
Representative Jackson,
Present.
Representative King,
Present.
Representative Kulkarni,
Present.
Representative Lawrence, Representative Lockett,
Present.
Representative Pratt, Representative Sharp, Representative Tackett Lafferty, Representative Truitt,
Here.
Co-Chair Wise,
Present.
Co-Chair Branscombe.
Here.
Perfect. Thank you all so much. Any members have any introductions of any guests that are in the audience? Seeing none, first item on the agenda today is importance of utilities and economic development. We have with us Amy Elliott, Amanda Clark, and Kevin Howard. If you would please formally introduce yourselves to the record, and we'll let you all proceed. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Amy Elliott, the Vice President of Customer Service and External Affairs for Kentucky Power.
I'm Amanda Clark, External Affairs Manager for Kentucky Power.
Kevin Howard, General Manager of Berea Municipal Utilities.
Perfect. Thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today to discuss the importance of utilities and economic development. You know, we're frequently asked why utilities participate in economic development and why we prioritize it. So we're happy today to answer any questions that you may have. If you want to make this more like a conversation, we do have a presentation prepared, but feel free to interrupt. So go ahead and get started here. So just a little bit about Kentucky Power. Kentucky Power serves 162,000 customers in the 20 easternmost counties in Kentucky. But our commitment to our customers goes beyond providing safe, affordable, and reliable energy. We are committed to economic development and philanthropic giving. We prioritize our AEP Foundation contributions in the areas of housing and hunger relief. Since 2020, we have contributed over $500,000 to housing alone. And then we also offer energy assistance funding for our customers. Amanda Clark is our lead economic development professional, and she'll be providing most of the information today.
Thank you all very much for having us. Turn on the mic, that usually works. You may ask, why is economic development important to Kentucky Power? And the short answer to that is for our customers and our communities. We want to help our communities in job creation because that means an increased tax base for those communities. It also means possibly and potentially lowering the rates when we spread fixed costs across a larger customer base. We're committed to helping all of those communities in economic development, and for that reason we have 4 trained economic development professionals on our staff, and we have the full backing of AEP's Business and Economic Development team. We recognize the critical link between a robust energy sector and a thriving economy. And for that reason, we offer competitive energy pricing, optional tariffs. We assist our partners and local governments in their economic development activities. We manage the Kentucky Power Economic Growth Grant, which has a very high priority in site development. And we also work with our communities for recruitment.
So, as far as competitive energy pricing goes, we do recognize the importance of energy pricing when businesses are looking to locate in our area. And for that reason, we provide two different types of rate incentives, but it's very important that these incentives are provided without reallocating costs to customers. So even though these potential businesses that are coming to our area may be receiving a reduced rate, we make sure that those costs aren't going to be paid for by their customers. That's very important in economic development. But our two primary types of rate incentives are interruptible rates. So essentially, how that works is customers receive a discount for the potential to be interrupted during times of peak demand. You may have questions about that one later. I think there have been, times that customers have been interrupted and, people may hear about it, but generally it's because they have chosen to be interrupted and receive a discount for that. And then our second is an economic development rider, and we provide reduced demand rates for customers that wouldn't locate in Eastern Kentucky without this incentive. And then there's an additional incentive for job creation through the economic development rider.
One of the most important ways that we contribute to economic development in Eastern Kentucky is through our Kentucky Power Economic Growth Grant, or KPEG. And KPEG is a partnership between Kentucky Power and our commercial and industrial customers, where they pay a $1 per month Kentucky Economic Development surcharge that is matched dollar for dollar by our AEP shareholders. That gives us a significant amount of money each year to put into economic development activities in our service territory. Those awards are awarded in four main categories. That is the economic development education, sites and buildings or product development, marketing and promotion, and professional consultants. Through 2023, Kentucky Power has awarded $5.3 million to our partners and communities for economic development activities. KPEG has been in existence since 2016. Some of those highlights include training 70 elected officials and 11 local economic developers in economic development education. We played a key role in achieving Kentucky Build Ready certification status for East Park Site B in Boyd and Greenup County and the Hager Hill Industrial Site in Johnson County. Further, we supported the Product Development Initiative pilot launch and the Kentucky Product Development Initiative, KPDI, funding to the Kentucky Association for Economic Development. And our contributions don't stop there. We assisted with road access to the Build Ready site in East Park and revitalization plans for 6 Eastern Kentucky cities, that being Ashland, Hazard, Inez, Pikeville, Prestonsburg, and Whitesburg. Additionally, we facilitated the expansion of SOAR's EKY remote program, which has successfully relocated 7 families into 7 different counties in Eastern Kentucky. We've conducted workforce studies to effectively market the region's workforce attributes to business and industry, and we actively engage in targeted recruitment efforts to attract new business and industries to Eastern Kentucky. You can see on this slide where the $5.3 million has gone in terms of those 4 categories for KPEG. And recognizing the potential for economic growth in Eastern Kentucky, Kentucky Power stepped forward as an original utility partner for the Kentucky Product Development Initiative pilot program with the Kentucky Association for Economic Development. This initiative offered crucial funding for site development projects, but in the first round, as you can see by this graph, or this graphic, in the first round, Eastern Kentucky was, unfortunately, underrepresented. Determined to level the playing field, Kentucky Power didn't hesitate to take action. We worked closely with our partners in the region to identify promising development projects and provided all of those partners with necessary guidance through the application process. This effort resulted in a significant increase in applications from Eastern Kentucky for round 2, and 3 of those applications have been awarded preliminary funding. Because of our work in site development economic development education, and marketing and promotion, we have more activity in Eastern Kentucky than we have seen ever. Kentucky Power is proud to be a driving force behind that activity. We currently have a robust pipeline of 30 projects. 8 of those are active, so 8 projects that are actively working through the process in Eastern Kentucky, in our service territory. The recent announcement of the Wortland Oil Works in Greenup County, a $25 million capital investment and 75 new jobs, we feel is a testament to our collaborative efforts.
So thank you for the opportunity to be here today and for your attention and for your ongoing support. The work you all do in the legislature is critical to attracting industry to Eastern Kentucky, and we will continue to look for partnership opportunities when possible. So thank you again.
Thank you. Mr. Howard, any comments from you?
I also had a presentation or a.
Okay.
Good morning. I'd like to thank you for your time today and the opportunity to discuss the importance of municipal utilities to economic development across our Commonwealth, and equally important, how strong economic development benefits our municipals and improves the quality of services we provide. As I stated, I'm General Manager of Berea Municipal Utilities. I've been employed there since 2002. During this time, Berea saw a population increase of approximately 27%, and currently 16,000 people call Berea home. Today, I'm also representing the Kentucky City Utility Partnership Group. This was formed under the umbrella and the assistance from the Kentucky League of Cities a little under a year ago. Today, we currently have 21 members throughout the state. We provide electric, water, sewer, broadband services to many of our towns and communities, stretching into the neighboring rural areas as well. Collectively, as a group, we provide electric service to over 171,000 customers, water service to approximately 160,000 meters, sewer service to 101,000 customers, and telecom broadband to 54,000 customers. Our state has approximately 800 wastewater treatment plants, approximately 20,000 miles of sewer mains. We also have 435 public water systems, 213 water treatment plants, and 64,000 miles of water mains, and 30 municipal electric systems that serve nearly 500,000 customers in the state. In many areas, the infrastructure is in place that supports expanding economic development and additional workforce population. We're considered a water-rich state. That gives us an advantage over many areas of the country. The competition, those that we're competing with on landing these jobs and economic growth opportunities. Much has been said recently about the condition of our aging infrastructure. In recent years, we've saw unprecedented funding become available to make the improvements necessary to continue the growth. We've recently, as it relates the growth that we've recently experienced as it relates to our economic expansion and job creation. Limited infrastructure is a significant barrier to economic growth and the utility's capability of meeting demands of development. However, this funding for utility-specific projects have enabled our utility companies to expand and improve their infrastructure in order to meet the current and hopefully the future growth we're experiencing in our communities, cities, and the state. As a facilitator of economic development, our municipals provide several advantages that I would like to cover. One, community ownership. We exist to provide the utility services needed to our citizens, businesses, and industries within our community. Service is our mission. We work closely with our commercial and industrial partners and strive to meet the common and individual needs they request as they strive towards sustainable success. Long-term community goals. I would like to touch on this just a little bit more in detail further in. But the long-term goal setting, communication, and planning is essential in the relationships between our utilities and the cities that we serve. Local control. We can offer local control. Every customer, resident, and business within our service areas are our owners with a direct say in policy, rate, and service decisions. This enables the opportunity to match local resources to local needs in order to offer the services that are the greatest benefit of our citizens. Also, local regulation. We're governed by elected officials of the communities we serve or by appointed boards that are familiar with the needs and goals of the constituents we serve. Reliable service, another advantage we offer to our customers, and one we have over many of our peers, and that are just simply because of the service area and territory that we cover is smaller. Often we're more responsive to service disruptions due simply to the geographic advantages that these smaller service areas offer. Reliable service is critical to meeting the needs of those that we're wanting to attract with economic development. Competitive rates. A recent U.S. Energy Information Administration, you got probably familiar with this, is an EIA report compiled for the month of March 2024. Ranks Kentucky as the 18th lowest average kilowatt hour price in the United States and third lowest east of the Mississippi River. The same report lists Kentucky rates at 13.01 cents per kilowatt hour for residential, 11.94 cents kilowatt hour for commercial, and 6.64 cents per kilowatt for industrial class customers. This places Kentucky at 3.67 cents per kilowatt hour lower than national average for residential, 0.82 cents kilowatt hour lower than national average for commercial, and 1.09 cents per kilowatt hour lower than national average for industrial customers. To expand on that a little further, locally, Berea Municipal Utilities, our residential rates are 8.31 kilowatt hour over the same time period of March 2024. Commercial rate was 8.28 cents per kilowatt hour with an industrial rate of 7.43 cents per kilowatt hour. I'm providing this data to support the statement that Kentucky's utilities rates are competitive. They should be promoted to businesses and industry sectors as a positive factor to consider when choosing a site to open business. Another thing that our utilities offer, we keep the dollars in the community. We make significant contributions to our municipal governments and provide payments in lieu of taxes to our cities. Local ownership also means our customers' utility payments stay in the community, supporting local business and economies. We hire local, we support local, and our focus is driven by local. We all share the same goals as public utilities. We strive to provide high-quality, reliable utilities to our customers and communities at the lowest possible rates. Low-cost utilities are a key component in attracting new business to an area, and we realize the importance of maintaining these low rates to the success of our community's economic development goals. I'm not here today to speak to this committee on all the key components that it takes to drive the strong economic development. There are a couple areas that I would like to point to that I feel that if we could strengthen those, it would make us more suited for some of these companies, businesses, and industries. A common hurdle to providing sustainable economic growth in both of our communities and utilities are infrastructure development and sound governance and planning. This relates to the long-term goals I mentioned previously. In order for economic development and workforce investment to be mutually beneficial, our municipalities must have an open channel of communication to our locally elected officials and be invested in decisions driving the economic strategies and development plans of the city. Likewise, our utility decisions on investment, capital improvements, and additions must take into consideration the short, medium, and long-term plans of the cities and communities that we serve. These goals are attainable and can be simply achieved through collaboration with our local officials. The strategy and planning required to make a positive impact will take continuous effort and persistence to reach our common goals. This communication planning is essential to ensuring not only that we're making ourselves viable to potential growth opportunities, but we're also putting into place the infrastructure that will sustain the long-term needs of our industrial and commercial customers. Wanted to switch over a little bit. Many in the room is probably familiar with this project, but just something that we've experienced locally is the Central Kentucky Airport expansion to sort of drive home the point of the local collaborative efforts. This project is currently on the cusp of advertising for bids for construction. It's involved the cooperation of 4 different utility providers: the city governments of Berea, Richmond, Madison County Fiscal Court, Eastern Kentucky University, and the Madison County Airport Board. The end result will be an expanded airport which will better serve each government entity's economic development plans updated facilities to better serve our current industrial businesses, an expanded aviation department and curriculum for EKU, improved water service via a new water line upgrade to approximately 100 current members, current customers, access to public sewer to many customers, which service was not available prior to the start of this project, and an overall positive impact to Richmond, Berea, and Madison County citizens. Another perspective and how I think that we can meet the goals of a collaborative effort between our utilities and our cities is I'll use locally again as an example. During our yearly budgeting process, we incorporated a section into our budget where we share and we put performance indicators, performance metrics into how we're meeting the city's strategic plan. In the last 4 to 5 years, Berea specifically has been able to add 900 to 950 jobs in the manufacturing and industrial sectors. This has allowed our utility to better plan, better collaboration between our utilities, all the various utilities in Madison County and our local leaders. And in closing, I would like to offer a thank you to the committee for all the support and funding. It's made a difference. It's recently been provided to our communities and our utilities. And on behalf of the City Utility Partnership Program, we look forward to collaboration and assist in any way we can moving forward with any initiatives. Thank you.
I want to thank all three of you for your testimony and also for your presentation. We have members with a few questions. I'm going to start off with the first one. If you could go to slide 9, that's what I have in the packet here, the one that shows the kind of the pipeline of the different, that one right there. Can you kind of drill down a little bit for me in terms of some of the size of those projects that are either active or maybe projects that are on the way in terms of the scope that you are providing? I'd like to know the scale of those projects, how small, how large that those are.
Certainly. The projects that we have in the works sort of run the gamut. They are from 15 jobs to 1,000. And they are from all sectors. We're looking at some wood products. We're looking at EV. We're looking across all manufacturing sectors in those 8 projects. There, like I said, it's a very very varied collaboration of projects.
Do you all, in terms of the scope of those projects and the power load, can you all sustain? I'm not on the Energy Committee. Y'all probably testify more in front of that than you would here in front of this committee. But if we're looking at a large-scale project, let's say a 900-megawatt megaload, can Kentucky Power be able to supply and provide for a project such as that scale?
You want to take that?
Yeah. So usually when you have a project of that size, there is sufficient lead time to either procure more power if needed or to, build a new power plant. But what utilities don't want is a huge amount of excess generation just that our other customers would be paying for at all times. So our demand is generally, I'm going to say somewhere between 1,000 and 1,300 megawatts. And so for us to be able to supply a facility for, that's an additional 900 megawatts, we're obviously going to have to either build or contract for additional power.
Okay. Thank you. Questions from members? Senator Mills?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with your headlines that says talking about the importance of utilities in economic development. I'm going to kind of tag along with what Senator Wise was asking. Really, we've had, in my part of the state, we've had notices go out about economic development and even medium to large projects. So just curious about, you addressed large mega projects, but even medium-sized projects, what's your capability of being able to handle those? And then also if you could talk about your power mix now, of course I'm always concerned about that, is what is your power mix now and what will it be, say 8 to 10 years from now? What is your plan to eliminate coal and go to any kind of renewables and what does that affect the ability of having power for economic development in the future?
I'll take the first part of that question in terms of load and siting projects. For the 8 active projects that we have in this mix, to make that what we consider an active project is a project that has chosen our site. And so in order for them to choose our site, we had to demonstrate that we have adequate power to serve that site. And so all of that is factored into the process before we ever say that's an active project. And then, as Amy mentioned, in that factoring, we have looked at how long it's going to take to build that project out and what we need to do in the interim. So that's, I hope that answers the first part of your project. Even small to medium-sized ones, they would not be in that site if we weren't able to serve it there. And I'll let you take the rest.
So I may have missed a few of your questions, but I'll do my best. So for our current power mix, so currently we have 285 megawatts of power at the Big Sandy plant in Louisa, and that's a natural gas plant. And we have an 800 megawatt joint ownership of the Mitchell Power Plant in West Virginia. So, and that is a coal plant. And then otherwise, we do procure energy from the market through our participation in the PJM RTO. So that's our current power mix. You ask about 8 to 10 years from now. I think that's changed a little bit this summer with the new EPA rules. And, Kentucky Power, along with Duke and Louisville Gas and Electric and KU, they are part of a coalition of utilities that are involved in a lawsuit with the EPA rules. And I think, our Attorney General is very active in that space also. So I can't tell you today what our portfolio looks like in 8 to 10 years. Carbon sequestration for each coal unit costs billions of dollars. So we're waiting to see the outcome of those cases before we can really give you an answer there. Let's see. Oh, and then the other thing that Kentucky Power has a distinct advantage in is transmission. So some of the really big transmission lines that you see, we have some in your area of the state, Senator Mills, some of the 765 lines. So AEP has a robust transmission network. And what we are noticing is that potential industry and, quite frankly, even real estate developers, they are following those 765 lines to determine where projects can locate. So, not only is generation and the ability to supply energy important, but transmission, I would say, is equally important in the economic development space right now.
If I can follow up, so are you guys looking into the future to update transmission to where those lines can carry even more power for mega loads? Is there analysis being done on those? I know that there's huge cost to do transmission from scratch, but there's a lot of interest and a lot of technology out there to help upgrade transmission lines. Is that correct? Are y'all looking at that?
So, I think we're considering everything.
Yeah.
Our transmission infrastructure in the nation is aging, but, the 765 lines are the biggest and best in the country, and we do have access to that in Eastern Kentucky.
Yeah, but it's safe to say that the Biden administration's EPA rulings have thrown the power business into a tizzy, and nobody knows where it's at. Is that correct? I mean, and it affects everything from economic development to people's power bill at their home every month.
Right. So as a utility, our priority is in providing affordable, safe, reliable electric service. And we, are committed to doing so and trying to work through the EPA rules to do so.
Yeah.
A tizzy. I would hate to admit that we're in a tizzy, but You know, it has definitely thrown a wrench in our operations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Lockett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have kind of an overall question. You mentioned, it was on slide 5, I believe it is, about the rate incentives and the discounted rates to be able to interrupt service. Kind of a two-part question to that. One would be, I guess, how often does that occur? Is this like where kind of like a blackout where like there's a whole section of town or a community that's out? Is it individual homes that say, yeah, we'll sign up for that? And then kind of a follow-up to that, if we are in a situation to where our peak has been hit and therefore we are having to reduce power to homes, how does that affect economic development? So in other words, if there's a company coming in saying we are going to need X amount of power, but yet we look back and go, you had to turn power off so many times per month during peak times, what does that do in terms of our development?
Yeah, I'll be happy to answer those questions. Kentucky Power has not been in a situation where we have interrupted power to homes because of peak demand. So the other parts of your question, we have 4 customers that currently have signed up for interruptible rates. And you ask, how often does this occur? Well, I'm very fortunate to have my customer service manager, Barry Nolan, here to back me up today. But I think that Winter Storm Elliott was the last time in December of 22. And then this week? And then we've had some planned interruptions this week. And, you know, reducing our overall peak reduces cost for all customers because of the way that certain utility costs are allocated. So it provides a benefit not only to the customers, the 4 customers in our area that have signed up for interruptible rates, but for all of our customers through a reduced overall peak demand.
I'm just going to follow up just a little bit to that. That interruptible rate is only available in the commercial and industrial class, or just industrial class. That's not. Residents can't say, "Oh, I'll let you turn my power off." That's an incentive that we give industrial customers only. Yeah, 500 kW and above. So it's not our residential customers can't sign up for interrupted rates.
Thank you.
Mr. Howard, any comments from your perspective on this?
Just as colleagues mentioned, you know, we've not had to locally do any of the rolling blackouts or the interruptions due to peak loading. We do have a plan in place, and I think the question was how it relates to economic development. One thing that I will add is our plan in place is our commercial industrial circuits. Those would be the last that we would do this. Usually on a request to lower your demand, it is a certain percentage of that demand. You can meet that with the residential load reduction before you would have to go into the commercial or the industrial circuits.
I have one. I'm sorry.
please
I have
proceed.
one more follow-up to that. And you asked about how that affects economic development. Actually, when we are pitching to a company or kind of trying to win a project, that interruptible rate is very attractive to them, especially if they have a process in which they can scale back, because they get that rate for that interruption, and they may be interrupted twice in the course of 4 years, but they get that rate all the time.
Representative Bratcher.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you all for your very informative information. Yes, infrastructure on utilities is very vital to economic development, especially in the rural areas. I have several calls that have come to me concerning putting electric boxes on the outside of people's houses or homes, and it, I guess, restricts the amount or usage of the electricity. And if you don't put one on, you get charged a fee. Are you familiar with this practice?
So Kentucky Power does not have that type. We don't have advanced metering infrastructure, for one, that would have the capability of doing that. We did do a pilot program several years ago that was a load management system. I don't recall the details, maybe for air conditioning and hot water heaters, but that, once again, that was an option for customers. And I think it was a $20 a month. No, that's not right. It was a discount for customers, but it was totally optional.
Just another question to follow up.
Please proceed.
Thank you for that response. And you had mentioned that you're transitioning from coal basically to natural gas, more natural gas. Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, it could be that in the future. We have the Mitchell plant in West Virginia that requires some environmental compliance control equipment that, we're constantly evaluating to determine what's the least cost for our customers. So we are working on a plan. We have an integrated resource plan that's currently pending at the Public Service Commission. And, Senator Mills said we were in a tizzy, but we are definitely reevaluating.
And that was another follow-up was with the Public Service Commission. Do you do you foresee the Public Service Commission being helpful when you're expanding your service to capabilities for economic development purposes or not?
So the role of the Public Service Commission is to be an impartial body, right? Mm-hmm. They are supposed to balance the needs of the utility and the customers in the area. And, that's what they do.
Do you feel that they're doing that job adequately?
The Public Service Commission is, they have a tough job. It's not one that I would really want. Well, I might need it someday. So they do a good job. They have a lot on their plate and a lot of utilities in the state that they are regulating. And all we can ask for is that they listen to our case and, find the answer that is best for all the parties involved.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Good questions. Representative Duvall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Howard, you had mentioned the importance of competitive rates to attract new business to our state. How are we doing compared to our surrounding states?
Well, as I mentioned on the data there, we were the third lowest east of the Mississippi, so portions of the Midwest, Northeast, Southeast, East. Kentucky is, on average is the third lowest in that area. On doing some research on this, a couple of the states that did pop up, I could provide something if I need to on this, but I know Louisiana was one of the states. Washington State was as far as the averages go. So I'm confident in saying in our surrounding areas we are lower or at least comparable as anyone else.
Senator Boswell.
Oops. You mentioned about the competitive nature of our rates, and so can you give me a little idea about how those rates that we have today compare with, say, 1990, maybe about 30 years? And the reason I ask that question, we have a major industry that came to our community about 30 years ago, and at that time they have told me that Kentucky was the most competitive rate in the United States, and now these years later, they considered a major expansion, and they told me personally that we are now the highest. And I'm not saying you are, but I'm just saying electrical has increased that much in our state that now that particular project went to another state because how high we were on our electric rates. And now that was in my district, in the 8th district in Davis County. So can you give me an idea about what you've seen as far as the actual rate and how that's been affected over the last 20 to 25 years?
I think over the last 20, 25 years, most of the rates are policy driven. The what was termed as the war on coal, for instance, that was that was a big driver in rates moving up. Kentucky was always in a position where a majority of the generation came from coal sources. So obviously that's had a impact on the rates. I'm not familiar with any area in the state, whether it's an investor-owned, a municipal-owned, or a cooperative that have the highest rates in the nation. I don't know. I can look into that and provide some data across all three of those. Locally, we've not had a rate increase since 2016. However, I do want to point that out that we also had a favorable purchase power contract that we entered into in 2019, where we were able to keep those rates stable. From 2019 to signing our newest purchase power contract that went in effect in May, there was some sticker shock there, and a lot of that is just where generation the majority of the generation comes from coal.
Thank you, sir. And I'm going to be a little more blunt than you were. You tried to be very nice about this war on coal. And I'm going to remind everybody that this administration, the Biden administration, is doing everything within their power to put Kentucky coal out of business. And we've got to somehow or another stop this. Coal is an absolute essential thing for the state of Kentucky when it comes to producing power. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Kulkarni.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 3 questions, if that's okay. If that's okay. Yes? Okay. Thank you all.
Proceed.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I might combine my first 2 questions. On slide, I believe it was slide 6, where you're talking about the economic grant, you mentioned revitalization plans for 6 cities. I was wondering which 6 cities those were, and I'll just go ahead. The reason I'm asking, you also, I think, the gentleman mentioned, metrics and key performance indicators and things like that. So my question is, if given the revitalization plans for these 6 cities, what are the performance metrics that you're looking at in terms of, are you tying it to increases in population, like residential growth? Are you tying it to certain industry sectors that you're trying to attract based on your conversations with local electeds or other community stakeholders? And so what are the metrics that you're tying some of this growth that you are going to experience, are experiencing, given the increase in infrastructure fund?
I can address some of that. The 6 cities were the city of Ashland, Hazard, Inez, Pikeville, Prestonsburg, and Whitesburg. Ashland was one grant, and then the others were a grant to One East Kentucky for the other portion of that. And in terms of the metrics, basically those were designed for quality of life metrics. In terms of, there's been a little bit of a shift in the mindset of economic developers, where for the longest time, if you weren't recruiting manufacturing and industrial, you weren't recruiting, right? It had to be a smokestack. You're chasing smokestacks. And what we found is, if we can't create places that people want to live, we're not going to bring the companies. And in rural Eastern Kentucky especially, if we aren't looking at things like restaurant, retail, tourism, we're not creating communities where companies want to locate. And so the metrics in those revitalization plans were laid out for specifically that, restaurant, retail, tourism, and how we are attracting not only people, physical bodies to come to those communities, but also making those communities attractive enough that a company would want to locate there. Does that answer your question?
It does,
Okay,
it does.
thank you.
And it kind of leads into my next question. Given that there's a shift from just trying to attract smokestacks and actual people to these areas and these specific cities, my next question is, what kind of environmental considerations are you taking into consideration, given the increase in extreme weather events that we're going to be facing? What are you doing in terms of your growth plan, how you're expanding, what you're building, how you're building it, to weather some of this in the near future? And I know, the EPA regulations notwithstanding, you're going to have, more frequent and more extreme weather events. So given that, what are some contingencies or redundancies, for instance, grid failure or things like buried power lines for people that are, if you're increasing the residential, populations in neighborhoods? So what kind of environmental considerations are you taking into consideration in your growth plans as you try to attract more people to these areas?
You want to take that?
As far as the environmental on the municipal side, I can speak to the water, wastewater there. We have stringent regulations that we have to follow with EPA, Division of Water, industrial in particular. And this goes back to the collaborative effort between our utilities and our local cities. We meet on this on, okay, what kind of industry are we looking for here? We have a pre-treatment plan that the industry must meet those standards on. So we got to be sure that whatever industry that we're recruiting, that we're talking to, can meet those pre-treatment. We get that out in the open up front. This is the plan. Can you meet this? Because obviously we don't want anything coming into our wastewater treatment plant that's going to throw us out of compliance with the EPA or Division of Water. That's from the water wastewater side. I will throw out of the 21 members of the Kentucky City Utility Partnership Group, 11 of us are also part of the Kentucky Municipal Energy Agency. One of the things that we're about to bring is the Ashwood Solar facility in Western Kentucky later on this year. That'll be coming online. That'll be a 90 megawatt facility. When it comes online, it will be the largest facility in the state, but it's not going to be there long. As the others come online, it's going to be moving on down, and we're also looking at, because of the regulations on coal, we're looking at developing another generation facility. That's the RICE units, the internal combustion engines, natural gas.
Thank you.
And can I add just a little bit to that? The terrain in Berea is a little different than Eastern Kentucky. When you talk about, service interruptions, in general, we have a very heavily forested area and some really long circuits. We have, 1.5 poles for every customer that we have. So it's a very different area than other parts of the state. But what are we doing to help reduce those outages with new interruptions? Some of the things that I wrote down while he was talking was we are expanding our right-of-way. About 50% of the outages that we have are caused by trees falling outside of our right-of-way. We are constantly looking at new technologies and ways that could help with service interruption. Even just making some of our circuits smaller helps with reducing the number of outages. And then one of the other interesting things that we have worked with the Office of Energy Policy a little bit on is nanogrids and the possibility of those helping during times of extreme outages too. Thanks.
We have two more questions for members. We'll move on after that to our next presentation. Senator Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Elliott, my first question is to you, and I want to drill down further on Senator Mills' question to you regarding your portfolio. Your answer was, because I was going to go there myself, your answer was that currently you're getting some energy from a natural gas plant, you're getting other energy from a coal plant, and then there was a third plant you indicated that you didn't indicate whether that was natural gas, coal, or some other source of energy. So just in terms of percentages, what would that be? Is your current portfolio 50% natural gas, 50% coal, or some other percentage variation?
So I can't give you an exact answer, and I'll tell you why. That third area that we indicated we get energy from is the Regional Transmission Organization, PJM. So there's a lot of energy in that market that could be solar or wind. You know, there's a bidding into the market system every day. It's based on cost. So I could tell you on a given day what percentage of the PJM portfolio was renewable or coal, but it's really hard to track down, you know, on an annual basis what we actually purchase from PJM. But roughly we have 30% coal and 70%. I mean, that's rough math. Hopefully
Is that
it's right.
70% natural gas?
No, 30% natural gas, 70% coal in our portfolio currently.
70% coal, 30% natural gas.
Senator Thomas, your follow-up?
Yeah, I do. I
Yep.
have two
Please.
questions. My second question, Ms. Howard, I hope you can answer this. We've heard from a couple of my Senate colleagues today talking about the Biden administration putting it in a tizzy, having its war on coal. I'm just curious if you can answer this question. To your consumers there in Eastern Kentucky, since 2020, what percentage increase have they seen in their rates? The people who are being served. What's been the impact on their rates over the last 4 years?
So once again, I'm going to give you a global answer more than a very direct answer. I could provide that to you later, but you know, in 2022, we saw a lot of fuel volatility, and so prices were up significantly in 22. So since then, Kentucky Power did have a rate case last year. But even given the rate case at the Public Service Commission, our overall rates are still down since 22 because there was that much of an impact from the increased fuel cost. But I'll happily follow up with you. And do you want that on an annual basis or? Okay. Okay, yeah, we can. Okay, we'll gladly provide that to the committee through the staff. Thank you.
Last questions, Co-Chair Branscombe.
Thank you all for being here today. I had 4 questions, 2 have been answered, so I'll spare you that. We talked about rates and our competitiveness with other states. And I heard you make a comment that you had, was it 1.5 polls per customer? Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. Which kind of sparked another question for me is, how do your rates compare to other providers in the state?
So our rates are competitive, I will say. You know, Eastern Kentucky is a very tough terrain to serve. Our customers are spread out. You know, we've lost customers over the last several years. We've lost kilowatt hour sales, and that does have upward pressure on rates. But our residential rates are competitive. Whenever you talk about residential bills, you not only have to look at the rate, but you also have to look at the usage. And usage in our area is extremely high. We have a lot of customers that heat with electricity, whereas in other parts of the state, you know, there's more natural gas used for heating. So you'll probably hear that our residential bills are the highest in the state, and a lot of that is attributed to usage. Commercial and industrial rates are extremely competitive. Our industrial rates are among the lowest in the state, and our commercial rates are competitive too.
Okay. And then final follow-up. And Co-Chair Wise also mentioned this a little bit, but are you worried about capacity moving forward?
So I think there's a lot of work to be done, and, you know, we need to be able to have a gradual transition with technologies that are proven. And so, you know, it'll be very interesting to see the final outcome of the EPA rules, but no, we're not worried about capacity. I think we have time to plan for whatever the future holds.
Yeah, because that was going to be my follow-up to that is, are you planning for that if there are some capacity concerns and how that's going to affect economic growth and rates in general? But, you know, is there some planning going on to help with that?
Yes, so the utilities in the Commonwealth are constantly planning for resource adequacy. Every 3 years, each utility files what's called an integrated resource plan at the Public Service Commission, and the commission will, and any interested parties have opportunities to ask questions and, truly determine if they think that plan is sufficient and provide feedback to the utility. But we have experts in resource planning that work every day to ensure reliable power for our customers.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you so much. Members, thank you all for all the questions. Thank you all for answering everything. Thank you for your presentation. And thank you as a family-friendly committee. We use the word tizzy and nothing else up here today. It's greatly appreciated very much.
Thank you very much.
We're going to shift gears and move away from utilities and move towards workforce investment. If I could have Canopy, Kentucky, if they could make their way for those presenting this morning to us. The title of the presentation today presenting is on Making Kentucky First in Good Business. Adam, I know you're no stranger to the annex hallways. If you would, though, first introduce yourselves for the record, please, and then we will let you proceed.
Just trying to get the presentation button here. I'm sure I'm missing it somewhere. There we go. My name is Adam Watson, and I am the Education Director at Canopy.
And I'm Kent Euler, and I'm the incoming board chair at Canopy.
Fantastic. The floor is yours.
So first, thank you, Chairman Wise, for inviting us, and Chairman Branscombe, and all the members of the committee here. Many of you heard from me over the course of the last session, but I hope today's presentation illuminates our work at Canopy even further. I included more slides than I have time to speak to, but I did want to make sure you had information in your packets, and I'd be happy to field any questions on slides I might pass over here. In short, Canopy is a nonprofit helping Kentucky's companies reinvest their profits back into Kentucky's communities. We envision a world where Kentucky leads the way with purpose-driven businesses, so that young workers eager for meaningful careers don't look to the coasts to do that work. They don't look to Austin, Texas to do that work. They stay here in Kentucky for their careers, or they relocate here, where companies looking to work in a purpose-driven ecosystem stay right here. Now, even though we care a lot about this work, you don't have to care for it to make sense. I won't read you all these stats. They show up a little bit later in the presentation as well. But the point is that running a business with purpose, running a business with purpose leads to greater value for everyone involved. So again, just for your information, I won't dwell on this, but here's a very brief timeline of our growth from 2018 back of napkin idea all the way up through today. Here's our wonderful staff. I don't know how that weird homeless guy in the middle got there. And here's our wonderful board. I brought one of our board members here today to share some insights with you. Kent?
Thanks, Adam, and thanks, Chairman Wise and Branson.
Microphone there.
Is it on? There we are. There we are. As I said, my name's Kent Euler. I'm the incoming board chair of Canopy. And I joined Canopy's board 3 years ago because I believe that what Canopy does is good for business and good for Kentucky. I'm a serial entrepreneur and a business person. I also spent 6 years running the Louisville Chamber of Commerce, GLI. Good to be back in Frankfurt. I'm a conservative and a capitalist. And it's my experience, which is also supported by academic research, that companies that operate using good business practices of the type Canopy teaches and certifies perform better financially. They do well while doing good. They incur less risk. That attracts cheaper and more capital. They have less turnover. They operate safer and healthier workplaces, which cuts back on work comp and insurance costs. They're able to access customers and markets that reward suppliers that use good business practices. Therefore, they can grow faster. Canopy companies reward their shareholders and also do the right thing for their employees and their communities, all using private sector dollars. And that's very good for economic development. It's good for the state budget. Canopy certified companies are the, excuse me, Canopy certified companies are just the kind of companies that we want to attract and retain in Kentucky. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak today, and thank you for your service and questions if you have them later. Adam?
Thanks, Kent. And I do want to apologize. Clearly, there's a lot in the air in Louisville right now, so we're both kind of struggling. Next, I wanted to not dwell here too long, but I do want to point out that a lot of the excuse me, a lot of the ideas for Canopy came from a real-world example. Our founder, Scott Collins, used the same purpose-driven capitalism that we endorse to grow his father's janitorial service company from a small operation with a lot of debt up to a very successful company with over 800 employees today. Thank you. A lot of the lessons he learned in practice are part of what we're teaching on a daily basis. This slide shows a breakdown of the general lanes in which we perform most of our work. Again, I won't go into a lot of detail, but briefly, we educate businesses, consumers, students, and even legislators like you via online materials and live events. We serve as a third-party certifier to verify the good work that Kentucky companies are doing, and we connect good businesses across the state to one another and to nonprofits that might help amplify the good work that they're doing. And there's a little bit more detail on those pieces, but again, I'll let you look at them in your packets. I do want to stop here briefly to note our newest initiative, what we're calling Canopy Membership. This is intended as an accessible way to give companies access to our educational and connective benefits while they consider whether or not full certification is right for them. These next couple of slides provide a little bit of detail about our certification process. And again, I'm happy to go into answering questions about those, but I want to be respectful of your time here right now. So I do have some overview numbers regarding Canopy's reach so far, including a list of good companies that are already engaged in certification and a list that are engaged in our membership option. This list is growing daily. We added 3 more yesterday that are not yet on this slide. And coming back to this infographic that I mentioned earlier in the presentation, I do want to highlight especially the bottom row of numbers, everything below the midpoint there. It's of particular relevance to this committee to see the impact that purpose-driven businesses have on attracting and retaining top young talent. And I want to take this last substantive slide to drive home one really important point about Canopy's work. Our engagement with these companies is helping them succeed, but we don't preach a specific brand of good. We don't tell you what good is. It's not our job to tell you what's right for your community or for your business, but to equip you to evaluate your own needs, your resources, and your opportunities, and then help you make the best of those things. We take companies that have what I like to call reckless good intent, great hearts, but not a great roadmap, and provide them that roadmap to turn their reckless intent into a focused impact that'll improve their workforce, their communities, and, as Kent mentioned, their bottom lines as well. So thank you all very much for your time and attention. I know we're coming up on time. Thank you to the co-chairs for inviting us, and I'd love to take any questions you have.
Thank you both for the presentation. Thank you for the timeliness in getting through the slides the way you did. It's greatly appreciated. I'll start off. We have a few members with questions. In terms of you're talking about the workforce, young people, what are you doing with, are you doing any partnerships with our post-secondary institutions? Anything along those lines that maybe you all maybe address, maybe even into the high school levels or anything like that to try to attract and retain?
Yeah, absolutely. So over this last semester, I had the privilege of being invited to teach a course at U of L's College of Business. I taught an MBA elective called Business Ethics and Sustainability. That was an excellent course, and we are working on adapting that curriculum to a high school level so we can offer it, hopefully, if we find the funding, for free to all of Kentucky's high schoolers so that our next generation of young entrepreneurs and young business operators have this in their tool belt so that they have So they're equipped with the knowledge that driving a company towards a purpose, whatever that purpose is going to help them succeed on all of their traditional metrics all the more. Kent, do you have anything to add to that?
No, that's good.
Fantastic. Thank you. Co-Chair Branscombe?
Thank you. Thank you all for being here today. Looking at the Canopy certification. So as a business, what is that?
Sure. So I'll go back to those slides to kind of provide a little bit of foundation. Essentially, what we do for certification is rather than verifying that a company has already met some extremely high standard, we like to do what we call letting the sinners into the church. If you can display some fundamentals and an intention to continuously improve the way that your company is exhibiting its purpose and interacting with the world, then you're good for Canopy certification. And a lot of our questions break down into these 4 tracks. So leadership checks with the top level of decision makers in a company to ensure that they're embracing things like transparency and honesty. Governance is to make sure that you actually write down the policies that you believe in instead of just talking about them over a water cooler. Culture is to make sure that you're sharing the good you're doing within the walls of your company with all of your employees. And external impact is to make sure you're looking at the community in which you operate and making sure that it's doing well as you're doing well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. And one follow-up, Co-Chair. Looking at some of the programs that you offer, and one thing that I've noticed when it comes to workforce, there's a lot of groups that are doing kind of their own things. And so one of my big questions that I always ask when people come talk to me about workforce, and we have Myra and the workforce boards, a couple of them are in the audience today, and they're really targeting the disconnected youth and, trying to target those seniors in high school. Are you working with anybody? Like, are you working with the chamber or some of the workforce boards? Because I'm a very big proponent of, a collaborative approach. And if there are some people who are who are offering programs already, there might be some overlap there. And if we can all work together, sometimes there's a better outcome. So that's kind of my question. Are there other groups, not necessarily businesses, but groups that you all are working with?
Chairman, you're absolutely right. We look for those collaborative opportunities any chance we can get. There's a reason we chose the word canopy. It's because we're looking for something that reaches out over everything. And we have collaborated with groups like YPAL to get at young professionals. We are working on a junior achievement collaboration. I have worked with a number of nonprofits to develop some of the educational materials we have. And we are always open to discussions with anybody who's got a good idea and wants to help us do it together.
Okay, very good. Thank you all.
Representative King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for this interesting presentation. What are some real-world examples of this being put into place where a company has a reckless but good intent and then is trained or equipped to put that into fruition in a better way? Like, what are some examples of that?
Sure. Excellent question. So I'd like to kind of direct you to my favorite example of this is from our founder. I brought him up earlier, Scott Collins, and his facilities management services, their janitorial service. He actually was getting a doctorate in literacy and rhetoric, nothing related to business, when his father unexpectedly passed away and he had to take over the business. He came into a business with a ton of debt, not terribly many employees, and essentially no idea what he was doing. And he said that's the only reason he kept it open is because he didn't know what he was doing. He wasn't aware of how bad all the numbers looked. And he came into it with the idea that if I take care of people, everything else will find a way to work itself out. And over the years, he has looked for ways to improve his employees' lives beyond simply offering a safe place to work and a decent paycheck. What else can I do? And he surveyed them because he had been taking sort of a scattershot approach. Every idea that comes to you that might be good for them, just pull the trigger on it and do something that helps somebody. But that's a lot the equivalent to writing a $50 check to every nonprofit that asks. Might feel kind of good, but that peppering of $50 checks is not ultimately going to make the impact you want. So he surveyed them and he asked them, what can I do that will help you? And they said overwhelmingly, we need financial health and we need physical health. So he started implementing programs like smoking cessation and company-sponsored shares in local farmers markets that would come set up in the courtyard of headquarters, providing, in some cases, as low as $2 for 2 weeks of produce for a family. And that helped improve their physical health. And for financial health, he started providing free tax prep on site and free financial education services where they learn about how a mortgage works, how a credit card works, basic stuff. And they started to notice their financial and physical health improving. And he managed to harness that to solve the biggest business problem in the janitorial service industry, which was turnover. Nationwide, the average is about 250%. You see employees stick around for a few months, maybe. And he dropped his turnover rates down into the 70s, and something like 80% of his staff are referrals from other staff. So he saves a ton of money on recruitment and retraining costs because he bothered to look into doing something that helps his employees outside their simple role as employees.
Thank you. Those real world examples help me better understand what your mission is. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. Senator Boswell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two quick questions. I'll try to wrap them up in one question. One of these pages, it doesn't have a number, but it says it pays to do good business. It says 83% of your employees will be more loyal to a company that contributes to social and environmental issues. Can you give me an example? I think the representative touched on this, but can you give me a couple more examples of what this means to contribute to social and environmental issues? And the last question is, the bigger question is, what do you want from us today?
A great example of how that affects businesses in Kentucky and across the country. Every Fortune 500 company has sustainability goals. Those goals extend out to their suppliers as well. It's not just what happens at the company. They extend out into their supply chain, tier 1, 2, and 3 suppliers. So if a company is practicing one of the things is sustainability, has good sustainability practices, that can help count towards Walmart or pick a Fortune 500 company's own goals. That makes that supplier incredibly more attractive to do business with than one that is not participating in sustainability goals in that particular example. That leads to more sales. So companies that practice good business, whether it's minority business practices, sustainability, or other pieces that Canopy certifies, are more attractive to large companies as suppliers. So companies that are based in Kentucky are going to sell more product to those companies. It opened up new markets.
I would be interested in, not at this time, but maybe at some point in the future, if we get into this more, about more specifics on that. But then my last question is, and what are you here for today? Just to educate us, or do you need something?
Sure. Yeah, well, fortunately today, my objective is pure education, so you don't have to deal with any asks. I know over the last session, you heard a lot of my asks for funding, and I'm likely to come back next time that you're considering funding and ask for something very similar. But today, it's just education.
Thank you. Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was not familiar at all with Canopy until today, and I would think that every company in the state of Kentucky could use your model and your help. So my question is, why do they not? And is there an expense you have to charge? I'm sure. What and how is that rate to companies? Is it based on size, whatever? But I would just like to know how you're compensated and why everybody doesn't use this format.
Sure. So I'll answer those two questions in reverse order. There is a membership fee in order to be counted as a member and to retain access to all of the benefits we provide and all of the guidance we provide. There is a monthly fee that is a sliding scale based on your revenue. So smaller companies under $1 million in annual revenue, $50 a month, something very easy. All the way up to $75 million annual companies are going to pay $1,000 a month. And there's everything in between at varying revenue rates. Now, if we get our numbers up in terms of membership to where we're targeting, then that ought to cover about 50% of our costs. But we do still have additional costs, and the reason that we have not yet saturated the rest of Kentucky is simply due to staffing. We're a staff of 4 people and 1 part-timer. So we just don't have the organic reach to be able to get out everywhere. But once we're able to onboard a few more people, and once we're able to get staff in other parts of Kentucky, we've got board members across Kentucky, but right now all our staff still works in Louisville. We would like to hire staff in other parts of Kentucky so that we can provide these services in a much more meaningful way to businesses located in other regions.
Thank you, Representative. Seeing no further questions, thank you all for the presentation, both of you for being here. Thank you for the education. I want to thank all the members today for all the questions provided for your attention. Do want to ask those members that are part of the Workforce Attraction Retention Task Force. We will meet here in this room at about 10:30 upon adjournment from today's meeting. So seeing no further issues today,